Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am in unfamiliar surroundings. I'm actually away for a week in Wales, so this is why I have a very weird kitcheny backdrop. But that doesn't stop the content. Today we are talking about Sunderland. Today we are talking and looking ahead to our next three games in the Premier League. Three obviously very crucial games for Sunderland. We play Palace away, Aston Villa at home and Nottingham Forest away before the next cruel international break. How hideous is it having international breaks this early in the season? But anyway, let's start though by doing sort of a look at when we can expect our players to be back from this current international break. And I've went through them all individually and kind of taken a guess as to whether or not they'll be able to start at the weekend. So Granit Xhaka, his final international game is against Slovenia at home. That is on Monday night, which is tonight as I'm recording this video. Ronaldo is playing Botswana at home tonight. We've got Diarra playing against the DR Congo on Tuesday. Hume and Robin Roofs, their international games are finished. Siddiqui and Masuaku are playing against Habib Diarra's Senegal, so that is on Tuesday. Talbi is playing Zambia away, that is on Monday. Alderete is playing Peru on Tuesday night, but that game actually kicks off in our time on Wednesday, like just after midnight. We've also got Adingra playing Gabon tomorrow, Traore playing Egypt tomorrow, Mayenda is playing Kosovo on Tuesday, Chris Rigg is playing the Netherlands on Tuesday as well. Tuesday being tomorrow. I don't know why I've went with tomorrow and Tuesday, but there we are. You have to deal with my uselessness there. So, you'd think that the ones that are playing on Monday and Tuesday could be okay for the week. And the ones on Monday, you would think, yes, would be fine. Tuesday is going to be a little bit more borderline. So, Ronaldo, for example, who is playing today, and I'll just use him as an example. So, he probably has a full day of travel ahead of him. So, he plays today. So, you'd think you'd probably leave on Tuesday. Full day of travel, so he probably gets back in on Wednesday. Then the club would not make him come in on Wednesday. They may ask him to come on Thursday ahead of the weekend, or they'll give him the time and he'll come in on Friday. Whereas Diarra, Siddiqui and Masuaku, that whole timeline gets pushed back, so the chances are they don't get back to the academy like at the absolute earliest. It would be Friday, and then they would be coming in, and what preparation would they have, what video would they have watched, you don't know. So it'll be hard to know whether or not they'd be able to play at the weekend or certainly start the game. Then you've got Alderete, who plays on Tuesday night, which is technically Wednesday morning, 12:30, just after midnight, in Peru. So again, he's got a full day of travel ahead of him, so he'll probably travel on Wednesday, and then he'd be probably Thursday, you would say you get the day off when he come in on Friday, and then he has to play at the weekend potentially. So it's going to be difficult, and obviously this happens a lot with international players. I'm sure that Crystal Palace have the same sorts of issues with their players. Obviously we have quite a lot of African players, and Alderete playing in South America, which means that they've got further travel. The ones who are playing in Europe, like for example, Xhaka plays tonight, so against Slovenia at home. So obviously he'd be then back in Sunderland tomorrow probably, and then we'll train Wednesday, Thursday, Friday ahead of the weekend, so he would be fine. Hume, Roofs, they've already finished their games, so they won't have any issues. It's just the ones that are basically playing Tuesday, I think, it's going to be difficult to see whether or not they'll play at the weekend. So it's a big decision. You've obviously then got the players who've been there all week, so for example at centre back, do they look at Mukwele, for example, and go, well, it makes sense to start him because he's not been away on international duty? And then, do you look at Alderete and go, we don't think you should play? So I don't know if Dan Ballard is closing on fitness. He might be. Maybe that he could be potentially an option in there. Maybe they look at other players. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what the squad depth would be. I'm not 100% sure. I would guess that Alderete would play if he could play. But you do have that thing of he hasn't trained all week. Has he prepared for the game? Etc, etc. So we also don't know the injury situations. Obviously that could totally blur things, and it makes it hard to know. Sunderland could lose two players to injuries, or they could catch niggles and whatnot. That's difficult. That's constantly a battle that clubs have to have with players in international duty and whatnot. So we don't know that yet. It will be interesting. Regis will probably give a clear idea on his press conference on Thursday or Friday as to where we are in terms of injuries after international duty. So let's look at the next three games. We have three teams that are very different to the opening three. Our first three games of the season against West Ham, Burnley and Brentford were three games that, if we're being brutally honest, we thought we could pick up a couple of wins, and that's what we did. We looked at that. It was quite a favourable handout from the fixture gods, so to speak. Now, though, we're playing three teams who are all in Europe. So we've got Palace, who obviously won the FA Cup last season. Forest had a really good season last year. Aston Villa had a really good season last year as well. Three teams that have got European ambitions. Three teams that are in that next bracket up. I think we've played three bottom 8 teams so far this season. And I would expect that the three teams we're playing over the next 3 games are going to be more looking at the top 8. That's my rough feeling on this one. And I think that all three teams that we're playing will look at Sunderland and think it's a winnable game. Palace at home have to target winning against Sunderland. Forest at home have to target winning against Sunderland. And Aston Villa, if they've got aspirations of getting in the top 5 this season, even though they've had a pretty wicked start of the season, wicked in a bad way, they will look at Sunderland away and think that's a game where we should pick up points. So all three of these teams will look at this and think we should win. And I think if you look at our first 3 games of the season, I would bet that most West Ham and Brentford fans probably would have took a point away from home at Sunderland. Obviously, Burnley did beat us, so you have to add that in the mix. But I think Burnley, that was a must-win game for them. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I think our team is built for these sorts of games. I think you look at what we've done in the transfer market. We've built, and I've talked about this a lot, we've built a team based on transition. Our team is at its best when it is sat in, absorbing pressure and then breaking. Look at all the pace we've added into this team. Look at all the players that have come in pretty much fill the same mold of being physically strong and very, very quick. And those transitions up the field are going to be vital in games like this. And if Sunderland are to win one of these 3 games, 2 of these 3 games, or all 3 of these games, it will probably rely on us being very resolute defensively and then clinical in the moments where we're able to counter-attack. And I don't even mean clinical in front of goal. You can have clinical play in the build up to that. It has to be winning the ball and playing the right balls out, finding the right players on the break. We've got to do that, and we've got to utilize the strengths that we have as a team, and those strengths are effectively the pace. All 3 of these teams, I think, will dominate possession against us. I know Palace and Forest aren't necessarily the most possession heavy teams, but I would think at home the emphasis will be on them to have a go at Sunderland. I don't think their fans would necessarily accept sitting in deep against Sunderland and letting Sunderland have the ball. I don't think that makes any sense. And Villa this season have dominated possession in every single game they've played. They had like 75% possession. I think it was 77% possession against Brentford away. Villa's going to come to the Stadium of Light and dominate the ball from start to finish, and then it's on us to take the ball off them at times and hit them on the counter-attack. So that is what we're going to see in these next 3 games. Make no bones about it. Sunderland will probably be lucky to have an average possession of 40% from these games. It's unlikely. At the start of the season, we have actually had more of the ball than I expected, but that's just the teams that we've played. But I think that the exciting thing for me is I look at these games and think this is exactly what we're built to play. Like, I think everyone who has saw our recruitment and has really looked in depth at it has went, right, Sunderland are a team that's built to be on the transition, and we're going to really, really see that, and we're going to see how that's going to work. Because even Burnley away was not a normal Premier League away game. Probably the only Premier League away game we play all season where we weren't going to be able to transition in the way that we want to. So that's really, really exciting. But we also have to look at the uplift in quality. I mentioned at the start, but we've played 3 sort of bottom end Premier League teams. Now we're playing 3 teams that have got, bigger ambitions than that. And we haven't tested ourselves against teams and players of this caliber. And that's going to be really, really fascinating to see how we mark up against these big teams, like Crystal Palace have Mateta up front, who's obviously just an insane footballer. They got Mark Guéhi at the back, which we don't know if he'll play because of all that situation with him. But they have got some insanely good players in there, better than what we've played so far this season. Villa, of course, are just full of internationals and top-level players. And Forest as well, they've had a really, really good transfer window. They're full of top level players that we've not come up against so far this season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we compare to them. And I think that's what's fascinating to me. I think it'll give us a really good indication of what this team is, because right now we have 6 points, but everyone's caveating that. Certainly the pundits are caveating the 6 points and the 2 wins with, yes, but those were games that were winnable for Sunderland. And these are games where I think all of them, we will not go into it given much chance. I would suspect that the betting odds have us as large outsiders for all 3 games, which is fine, but it gives us an idea of where we're going to be. If we were to get 3 points, 4 points, 6 points from these games, then that's a really, really positive outcome for us. So what would be a good return? I mentioned there, 3, 4, 6 points. I think that from my perspective, a win, just 1 win from this would be ideal. If we could be on 9 points from 6 games, that's a really, really good start of the season. It probably puts us maybe 6 points from the bottom three, depending on what the other teams around us do. And yeah, the away games feel like free hits. When I say free hits, that's not to say that we'll go there and try and win the games and be really, really aggressive. I think what I mean by free hits is points picked up away from home are just bonuses. And I think we'll go into these games against Palace and against Forest thinking that a draw is a very good result. And if we can nick a goal, potentially from a set piece, that would be absolutely massive for us to get 3 points there. But the home game against Aston Villa, and look, when the fixture list comes out, you look at Aston Villa at home and you say that it's a hard game. They are one of the 6 best teams in the Premier League in terms of quality right now. They start the season pretty slow. They haven't scored a goal yet from open play. They have added a few players in on deadline day, so they should be a little bit stronger than what they were in their last game against Crystal Palace. But are they still going to be in a little bit of a funk from the start of the season? I don't know, but that's really, really interesting to me. And I think we can look at that Villa game, and that'll be the one that they target and they go, do you know what, we can win that game if we play the correct game, and play our style the way that we want to. And I think that that's the way I'm looking at this one. The Villa game, it's definitely not a must-win game. I'm not, it's not like the Brentford game where we felt like we had to win that game. The Villa game feels more like we could win that game. But if Aston Villa turn up and play at their absolute best, it'll be really difficult for us to get anything from that one. And that's the thing. We're relying on them maybe having a little bit of a drop in performance for us to win that matchup. So a good return, I think, would just be 1 win. A fantastic return would be anything more than that. And look, I'll not be massively disappointed if we say picked up a draw from these 3. I think it would be nice to win a game, but you have to be realistic. These are difficult games we've got coming up. We shouldn't fear anyone in the Premier League, but if we were to lose the away games, tight games, and then pick up a point against Aston Villa, that wouldn't be necessarily the end of the world. We'd still be on 7 points from 6 games, which would be all right. I think it probably would be a disaster if we lost all 3. Probably would just about be a disaster if we did that. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you expect from these 3 games, and we'll catch you for another video very soon.